Welcome to another Directions Mag podcast, co-hosted with our friends at Urissa.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Directions Magazine Urissa podcast collaboration. I'm Siobhan Van Allen with Urissa's Vanguard Cabinet. Joining me today are Whitney Kotlewski and Raynah Kamau, the founders of Black Girls M.A.P.P. Black Girls M.A.P.P. is an organization that uses GIS to bring focus to racial equity and social justice issues. The MAP in Black Girls M.A.P.P. stands for Mapping with Action to Pioneer Progress in Our Community. Whitney and Raynah are going to share about the important and timely social justice and civic engagement work of their organization. Welcome, Whitney and Raynah. Thank you for joining me today. Can you each introduce yourselves and share about the mission and objectives of Black Girls M.A.P.P.?
So Whitney Kotlewski here. I'm a design program manager at Esri, particularly focusing on user experience, interactions with our software and product. So I work with desktop, web, mobile applications, helping kind of craft user experiences. But that's the day job. At night, Raynah and I are working on BG Map community mapping projects. And so a good portion of my work is really just in not only kind of group a part of our initiative, come up with easy to use, easy to digest content for community members to engage with, but also just working through how to take core key issues and making them visually just appealing and also for people to just be able to interpret them and understand clearly what's going on around them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and my name is Raynah Kamau, and originally from Kenya. I've been living here in the U.S. for the past 7 years. I work at Esri as well as Whitney, and I serve at the capacity of a strategic or technical advisor for most of Esri's partners. I am a co-founder of BG M.A.P.P. alongside Whitney, where we decided, or we kind of share the same passion, which is using location intelligence or using GIS to visualize social issues impacting underrepresented or marginalized communities. And so that's pretty much, how we got started. A quick kind of background is, Whitney and I have been friends, and we were having lunch one day, and we were just asking ourselves, it would be nice to see some sort of representation, because it's not a lot of us Black women, within this field of GIS. And we just started wondering, how can we find where women in GIS are, and let's connect, because it was a little evident that we did lack representation in the GIS field. And so we decided to come up with Black Girls M.A.P.P. And just like Siobhan mentioned, the MAP in there stands for Mapping with Action to Pioneer Progress in Underserved Communities. So when we got together, the first mission was to just, where are all the other Black women in GIS? And that kind of kicked off our first project, where we used Esri technology to visualize and to kind of use some points on a map to show, or to find out where other women are in GIS. But that we didn't stop there, right? We wanted to create awareness, especially in regards to GIS, that there are Black women in GIS. We wanted to celebrate Black women in GIS, because, as I mentioned, there wasn't a lot of representation for us. And thirdly, we wanted to have a platform where we would connect with each other. And we found our user conference that, we typically have in San Diego tended to be one of those connection points where we would connect with other Black women in GIS. So that's primarily how we started, but we started evolving because Whitney and I have a passion, and a passion also in the technology, right? We both kind of have our strengths in GIS and in the tech aspect of it, where Whitney is a senior kind of design, and she kind of primarily leads most of our development efforts. And I've used GIS in various aspects. So just putting together issues or talking about issues and then visualizing them using GIS tools is another passion we found to have or to share. And so that kind of evolved our mission, not just to find out and promote or celebrate Black women in GIS, but also use the technology, and using this technology, just vocalizing or amplifying the issues and primarily the social issues that are happening within underrepresented communities. So that's a brief introduction to who we are.
Taking a step back, when was Black Girls MAPP founded?
So we're about 2 years, 1.5.
Yeah, like about 1.5, but
One and a
it
half.
feels longer.
All
And
the
Yeah.
way.
actually, oh no, I did want to shout out, it was about a year and a half ago, and really what ignited BGMAP because I've been tinkering around with the idea of community mapping for a while, but it wasn't until Autumn Jones, who's no longer with us, but she was a key contributor to just I think Rain and I's just uh, I guess empowerment of even doing an initiative like this, and it spawning from an employee resource group at Esri initially. But she was our kind of our mentor there and pushed us, gave us the nudging. She was kind of like a mom, but also friend, sister, kind of collaboration there. And so she nudged us to just get our feet wet and to get out there and just do it. And so I think that's been kind of our anchor right now, as far as the continuation of our work since about a year and a half ago, from Autumn, who we definitely like to dedicate a lot of the work that we're doing to her.
The amount of projects and content you produced in a year and a half is so impressive. The scope of topics you've covered and the robustness of the information, like I applaud you both. This is a great resource, and to think it's just come together in under 2 years too. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a whole teamwork behind this. So we appreciate it.
Great, thank you. So
Mhm.
besides the two of you, are there others involved in this work helping you create the projects or develop new projects?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, we have several different team members, and this is spanning not only internally through Esri, but outside of Esri as well. And so it's really, I think Ray and I are introducing community mapping, which she can talk a little bit more about, but we've realized that there are people with desires to kind of do more with GIS, than even just their immediate roles. And yeah, Raina, do you want to get in a little bit about our mapping teams?
Yeah, sure. Um, we have a group of people, just like Whitney said, inside and outside of Esri, because there was a conviction behind them. They want to use their talent, and they want to use kind of like their skills, especially with everything that's been going on. There's that question of what can I do to help. I'm a GIS expert. I work with it. I'm a developer. What can I do to help, especially with kind of like the social climate right now? And so, and I'll talk about some of the projects that we actually got involved in. But the first project that I mentioned, I believe in the introduction there, was mapping, right? Mapping Black women and finding out where these Black women are, and having an application that was consuming or was pretty much visualizing different women in different places in the U.S. And we call that the mapping Black women in GIS. So what the map highlights is just where Black women are by state, and it also kind of provides individual profiles of these women within the field of GIS. Another of our projects that we've worked on, and we have a team that we work on these projects with, is a Black businesses application, and this is primarily just a crowdsourcing application that allows for different community members or community groups to add and view Black businesses in California. And amongst other projects here, we've had with the COVID situation and with the whole pandemic this year, we came up, or Black Girls Map published a story map that pretty much discussed the socioeconomic impacts of, the disparities that Black people are experiencing during this pandemic. A quick example would be like in I believe in Chicago, that there's not a huge population of the Black community, yet they were a group or a community group that was highly impacted. And delving further into that map, into that story map that we were putting together, there were aspects that were contributing to these results. So just primarily using location intelligence and the tools, that Esri has pushed out for us to visualize these issues that directly impact underrepresented communities. So those are three kind of broad, three specific projects that we've worked on amongst others, and we do have some other projects that have been highlighted on our website as well. Not only do we do that, right? We have other initiatives and kind of other engagements that we've been involved in. So, yeah.
For the projects that you focus on, how do you decide what projects to select? Or is it things that you both are passionate about from the beginning, or do other people bring topics to you that you then research and develop?
I would say a mix of both, where we have been driven by passion for different topics for these projects, and we've had community members or folks reach out to us asking us about different projects as well.
I think like a prime example would be we did a project for fatal police shootings, investigating fatal police shootings, and really that just spawned from the fact that we had just learned about Botham Jean um, being shot and killed in his apartment, and we realized, after countless others were being mentioned following that month, that we wanted to do something, and we didn't just want to make a social media post or, wear a shirt or something like that. So we decided, let's use our tools. Let's use, the skill sets that we have available to us, the resources that we have available to us to have a discussion about how we feel. And I think during that process, though, something interesting happened where, though we had our own personal feelings around um, these types of interactions and altercations that you see that end up very deadly for African Americans and also other minorities, um, we realized, though, that in order to have a very serious conversation about something that is reoccurring and impacting, us, even if it's indirectly, um, is that we have to do it with facts. We have to do it with data and let the data speak for itself. So through that process, we realized that we can't let our emotions sway the conversation. All we can try to do, though, is just try to find as much data and resources to have a discussion about the issue, and hopefully that will shine through to start educating and bringing awareness to the importance of the topic itself. So that was one I think that was true to our hearts because we really started, I think, this idea of letting the data speak for itself, and letting that kind of guide even just how much we kind of go as far as how much we go with the research that we're doing was a prime example of that. There's other projects like mapping the state of immigration in the U.S., talking about the detention centers, and not just saying this conversation around building a wall or not, but let's just talk about the detention centers themselves and who's in them. How many young people are in them, how many people without being separated from their parents, and we can also have a discussion about who's making money, for every head that's in a detention center. The same goes for prisons and incarceration. Who's making money off of this? It's not just a coincidence that it's certain types of people. And also when you look at the location of how they're, I guess, being entered into these systems, it's also there's things too that you see from maps that can be very telling of borders and how they're being patrolled. And so, there's all these conversations that take place that are happening socially, obviously today with the rise of all the protests, and there's so much social tension. across many things around topics like health and abortion, women's rights. You have all your race-related issues, which really are part of most of the issues going on right now that are immediate. And so it's like, you have to let the data speak for itself, because it's not going to be good enough if Rain and I and others that think like us, or have similar, I guess, feelings towards the particular social issues. It's not good enough for us to have a conversation amongst ourselves. It's not going to do anyone justice, actually. And then it also doesn't do us justice too to say, hey, marginalized communities, this is what's happening in your community, because most likely Black men know that they're being shot more than any other type of demographic group in America. You don't need a map to tell them that. That's why they, from birth, they're told be careful when you go outside. And so it's like, they don't need you to necessarily tell them, but what we're trying to do, and I think what Rain and I have found with the work that we're doing, is trying to educate and empower people who can help, people who can make a difference, people who are empowered, that we can shift their thinking so that they can start providing resources for change. All having their backs against the wall are obviously caught off guard. They're not going to be able to do it on their own. And so those people who have the skill sets, those people who have that power, we're hoping that our maps and things like that will be able to inspire them to do more.
I think something you said that really resonated with me was that the way you're curating and presenting the data to people really makes it accessible to maybe people who weren't thinking about the topics through a certain lens, or maybe
Yeah,
open to a discussion on it. But the way you share data, it makes it really accessible and digestible for people, and it's targeted, so the conversation doesn't spiral, that it shows
right.
clear information and keeps the conversation focused, which I think is really important in the dialogues that we're having.
Correct.
Are there any other broader community research projects or Black community focused projects you'd like to highlight in our conversation? You've touched on a lot of great ones that are accessible on your website, but I don't know if there is any others you'd like to mention.
Yeah, so we have a project that's going to be released, I believe, and Raina, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've backed the date a little bit there, changed it a little bit, but in October we'll be releasing our People for the People work, and this is all geared towards the election. And this is spawning from the fact this was, I guess, Black Girls M.A.P.'s call to action to the recent and current events of George Floyd, the protest, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. I mean, there's countless others that we can mention. And, I, because really there's a pandemic happening, it stretched a lot of these things that were already kind of stewing underneath the surface. They were happening, but they didn't bother, I think, us socially as much. I think individually it was bothering people, but not in a public kind of space. And so you have this strain that takes place on all of these different events and disparities, and it kind of just blows up. And so that's kind of what we're seeing as far as the politics go of everything. And so Rain and I wanted to do something, once again, inspired to do something, to have a voice in all of this. But we wanted to obviously use GIS as the forefront. So we said, let's get people together. Let's see how many people are also feeling frustrated about everything. And let's just get people to vote. So we called it People for the People. And we're hoping that people will vote for people with hearts for all people, not just some people, or those people. And so we've created different mapping projects. I'm so sorry. We've That's a 2-year-old that just ran through, and this is just the life of a mom in the middle of a pandemic working from home. But
That's
uh,
very real right now.
this is a real life situation happening here, and my husband's face too. Um, so what this project has entailed, though, is we had about 150 plus individuals that signed up to support our initiative from all over, not just from Esri, coming together, creating teams, managing teams. I mean, we are pretty much an organization running on its own, with people just volunteering their time. As you can see with the time that I have, and the fact that my 2-year-old just jumped in, most people have, obviously, Raynah herself, very busy. We're stretched. The pandemic, as far as Esri's business goes, we were very involved from the beginning, and so a lot of us have taken on lots of work. And with the racial kind of pressures as well, we've been trying to answer that as a company as well. So a lot of work being done, not just from a professional business as usual standpoint, but then there's all these other things too. So, trying to get people to volunteer time when, time is kind of blurry right now, was amazing to see that people did it, that they had such a desire to want to change something, to be
Right.
part of change, that they jumped in and wholeheartedly just gave their all, helped us craft and create different various types of information products, ranging
Right.
from not just story maps to um, even just new innovations. We have this thing called sentiment mapping, which no one does. Like this is not even something Esri does. But sentiment mapping is basically a word cloud that also maps those responses on a map. So when you ask a question like, how do you feel about race relations in the US? People can say how they feel across the nation. And you get to see where those responses are. You get to see the words. You get to see the words and not all this other noise. You know what I mean? You get to see people say sad, depressed, discouraged, um, you know, some people saying hopeful, and you get to read context about why they're choosing these words. And so that was something that I think was really innovative from our group as a sentiment mapping, along with the fact that we've also been leveraging other organizations' work. So groups like Ballotpedia, which is a big resource for people knowing who's running in the election, for specific parties and for your state or district. And we've actually created a whole new app. So this application is like no other because of the fact that not only are we making it visual on a map, all of the different candidates that are running across the US for House and Senate, but we also are labeling people if they are female and if they are also a person of color, which is something that most people don't talk about. Obviously, for given reasons in politics, you try not to talk about the race situations of the candidates and specifically for parties, but we wanted to call it out because I think in this election, we've identified many women who are running, which is awesome, which is a change in the tide. But then also too, seeing people of color and where we hope to be in the future. Not as many, but definitely more than what we've had. And so there's progress there, but there's more progress to be made. But until people start to see it visually, we won't know where we've come from and how far more we need to go. So this project is really dear to our hearts. We're hoping that it changes the political landscape as far as campaigning goes as well, using mapping data. And we talked a little bit earlier about using data to be the thing that drives the conversation around issues. Well, we also can use data to measure the work of people that we put into office. And so we do have things like tracking bills and tracking who's been voting on bills. And you can start to see when you put someone in office, what did they do and what did they vote on?
Right.
And so when we start talking about reelection, this is huge when people can go back to a map and say, hey, you didn't do what you said you were going to do, or or you did, and this is great, and we want to reelect you because you've been consistent. You're not just following trends, or you're just not following what you think will get you reelected, but you're truly standing on your word and your values. And these are your core values. We can see it here over time. So definitely a really awesome project that we definitely wanted to note.
That's great. I
Hmm.
like that it's not just relevant for the upcoming presidential election in November, but it has life beyond that, and the work continues well after the election, holding people accountable and looking towards future elections as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just talking also, so what Whitney was talking about is pretty much our current project, and it's where our efforts are. Um, but prior to that, we've actually collaborated with some different community organizations, and one that comes to mind that was very memorable and kind of something that really brought about a conviction was mapping. Initiate Justice. So they are pretty much a community organization, and their mission is to end mass incarceration by activating the political power of the people it directly impacts. So what they do is they organize their members inside and outside of prison. So this group has members in prison, and what they're doing is helping advocate for their freedom and specifically changing criminal justice policy. So what we did, we ended up just working with them. They were collecting data from inmates that are in prison, and they were trying to find out a better way to collect data, a better way to analyze this data, and a better way to share this data out to their group members. And so what we did, we took some of the data that they were working with, and we worked together, and we put together a small application that they can use to collect data, and not only collect data but use GIS to visualize the information that they pretty much want to show to their group members. So it's an organization that was, I think, founded in 2016, and there was it's one of those projects that we got involved in, that we shared the same kind of the same thought process, and just understanding the power of location intelligence in these types of topics.
If someone wants to get involved and help support the work of Black Girls MAPP, how can they do that?
Well, right now, we're in the middle of revising and revamping things. So right now, the website is our go-to bgmap.org, bgmapp.org. And that's where people can just get in contact with us. Uh, Coming in the next coming weeks, we will have our People for the People campaign, which Raynah and team are leading. And they will be basically not only advertising on social media, but we'll have it on our website as well, ways that people can not only just view the content and engage with the content that we've created from our teams, but also be able to come sign up and support us, which means this isn't just the reason why we call it like the People for the People initiative is so that it could live on by itself. So we're hoping that there's a part two. We have a lot of interest groups that are interested in kind of taking what we've done as the foundational layer and then building that up and obviously expanding how many more people. So from 150 plus people to even more people across the nation globally. So we're having conversations about how far and wide this initiative will go. And so we definitely will still always need people who are interested to kind of take what we've done and help us even make it grow into something even more special. So definitely the website, I would say, is a place, and then the social media, which Raynah can talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so we had people reach out for in different kind of levels of engagement. So there's people who reached out to us, and they want to, get involved in the projects. We've had folks who want to support, and their form of support is either, reposting or just showing support by sharing some of the work that we're doing with different community groups here and there. So, like Whitney mentioned, they can reach out to us on bgmap.org, or we have, I do believe we have a contact us button on our website. But we also have our social media platforms, which is at BGMAP on Twitter and Black Girls MAPP on Instagram, and we typically get some engagement in those social network platforms where folks have reached out to us via DMs, of course, and as well as as well as private messages. And we always take those seriously, because we take those interactions and we formalize those conversations to get to exactly what someone was reaching out about. And we also have LinkedIn, right? So if you go to LinkedIn and type in Black Girls MAPP, there's a group there, and we've had some sort of engagement and interaction for that. So that's primarily how you can reach out to us. You can even reach out to us via our email alias, which is bgmap at esri.com. Whitney, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
I guess kind of wrapping this up, some of my final questions are, so after People for the People launches and that gets going, what is next for Black Girls MAPP? And is there any data or issue that you would really like to feature next? using your platform that isn't available yet?
Yeah, Siobhan, so that's a good question as we're I think still figuring that out as well. Things that are next after at least this this first haul of the People for the People initiative is hopefully we have some good results in November. But is we're doing a lot of speaking engagements and mentoring. So we've been asked by MIT and other universities to be able to help their students get more engaged with community mapping from various different types of departments. So from urban planning to English, English literature departments, wanting to, use story maps, wanting to use GIS tools able to um, to be able to basically insp- to basically impact their own immediate communities, but also just use their knowledge base of their academic kind of knowledge and then combining it with now this kind of data visualization kind of form factor. So definitely is going to be fun to see young people. I think that's been an inspiration of ours. As you know, Rain and I both weren't coming from GIS fields initially and then kind of just got into GIS and we saw how far we've come. We're just hoping that we can inspire others to do the same and to come with their own new flavor and vibes. And then also for people to see that representation. Every time we walk into a classroom, every time we show up on a call, even this podcast in itself, we're two Black women, two Black women who didn't initially start out in GIS, but have kind of made it our own. And we hope to inspire not just for people to look like us to do it, but that's also going to be a win for us to show that there's diversity in GIS and that this is just one of many tools that you can use to be able to have very serious conversations that can initiate change. You don't have to have a bunch of money. You don't have to have a huge amount of support. Me and Raynah just kind of did this on our own. Like I said, Autumn Jones pushed us to do this, but no one a year and a half ago was talking about Black Girls MAPP. And if anything, a lot of people had a lot of reservations around the name Black Girls MAPP and why you needed to have a Black Girls MAPP. That was the conversations we were having. And so even just to be in this opportunity today on this podcast to talk about all the work that we've done since then, since those early conversations, is just showing, what one step, one risk can do and how it can open so many doors. And so we just hope that as we get to these classrooms, as we talk to more people, as we help people manage conferences on diversity and inclusion in GIS, that we can just continue to inspire more people to just want to initiate change through data visualization.
Absolutely. And I think just to echo what Whitney said in regards to the future, I think we'll just continue just as we started, because when you're working on a passion, it's not a job. It's not, it's not something that you feel like you're tasked to do. It's pretty much, what you are convicted about and your effort and energy, that the energy and effort that you want to put into different social aspects that come about. So we'll just continue mapping, and we'll continue using our talent and our skill to visualize social issues that we think need to be visualized and need to be spoken about, especially in the GIS realm.
Yeah. And I failed to mention, Rain, I think we both did. We are on the agenda items of things that we are signed up for, or we've been signed up to do. We're also going to be writing a children's book. So that is something that is
Hmm.
a very new territory
Right.
for Rain and myself. And yeah, we are looking forward to not only just writing the children's book, just because that's an awesome opportunity, but we get a chance to showcase application centered around lost Black history. So it's kind of like our answer to gentrification that's happening across the U.S. But we've made an app that basically lets you tour Black history in Harlem, and so that will be the kind of scene, I guess you would say, around the plot for our first initial book that hopefully will be a series of books and a series of apps that our teams will be creating to support actual engagement with the book that we're writing. So it's really fun just because we're gonna see a different world that we're not into, which is literature, kind of
Yeah.
meeting now this GIS world that we're into, and hopefully it inspires young people. We also have the chance to kind of bring out the young, person of color to be maybe in a lead role. We have the chance to be able to do those things that we didn't get a chance to see when we were growing up in school, when we were reading books. And so when we start talking about adventure and solving problems and taking on the world and all these things that young people kind of in their purity of hearts, get to think about, we get to write a character or characters that can reflect things that maybe we didn't see when we were younger. And so speaking from a mom's perspective, I get always teary when I talk about this because I think of my daughter being able to, she's interracial, but she definitely has more skin that looks, more darker skin than her father. Um, but she's seeing that book probably is going to be more the world to me, just because of the fact that she'll get to see someone that looks like her, hopefully, in that book. So definitely exciting times for us to kind of be promoting little hidden figures
Hmm.
during this time.
Right.
Well, that's first of all, that's an awesome opportunity. How cool. It's something you wouldn't necessarily, or I wouldn't necessarily think of like coming out of your project, like the
Hmm.
opportunity to write a children's book. What a cool endeavor. So are you saying that with each book there'll be like an app that goes with it to accompany it?
Yeah, yeah. So right now Rain and I have worked with the team to create, and they're actually, they're pretty much, I think they're in the mid fidelity of developing this app now. So we'll hopefully have it out by the end of the year, in time for the actual book to be released next year around Esri's UC, I believe is when it will be released. But yeah, the goal is that we would look at different cities, and that was the initial goal of our application, was to just
Right.
have an app that lets you navigate. So if you're in New York, you could just you through, streets of famous Black athletes, famous Black musicians and writers and poets and activists. You could see museums. You could walk by even just a street that someone lived on, or maybe it was a very prestigious street of Black entrepreneurs. And so there's all these like rich historical things lying around us, especially in cities that have kind of been gentrified. And so we hope to kind of um, kind of recreating it through a mobile navigation app where you get a chance to listen to music on it, from music of that time period maybe, and then also see, information that you could read more on about like kind of what took place there. So when we look at places like Chicago or DC, um, these are going to be cities that we're looking to kind of let be the next steps of this application, would be to take it to those cities and then possibly have a book around things happening in those particular cities as well. So yeah, it'll be an evolution of apps, I guess, around Black history, for all ages, for all age groups to read about and to interact with. And from all different backgrounds, even though it's Black history, we want to make sure that it's at least, people can learn about it, but anyone can learn about it. It shouldn't just be, Black kids only learning about it. But we're hoping that, it's engaging and exciting enough. The illustrations and everything else about it, and including the app itself, can inspire young people just to see much more than probably what they're getting right now in school.
That's very cool. So we can look for that next year around the UC for
Yes,
more
next year's
information.
UC should be a nice debut for that.
Excellent. Are there any last thoughts either of you have to share?
I think it's not a thought. I think I wanted to maybe take this opportunity just to say thank you to you guys for having us, and also to the broader People for the People team. We
Yes.
had about 150 people who decided to dedicate their talent and their skills in leading projects and being involved in different aspects of GIS mapping, just to help, provide more information to the underrepresented or marginalized groups, trying to make it easy and palatable for all these election resources that are all over the internet. So I really want to say thank you to each and every team member who contributed at any capacity. We just want to say thank you, because this project that Whitney pretty much talked about, People for the People, we were really humbled by the number of people that came through and decided to take lead on several aspects and several projects that we'll be pushing out next month. So I think that was what I wanted to say. I wanted to say a great thank you to those. I think this is a legacy that we built in the past couple of months since July, and we're really grateful that we got to work alongside you all.
Yep, yep. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Siobhan and Barbara. We appreciate you guys for letting us be on this podcast. And even Raynah, thank you, because I know not many times do people get to see two Black women. I think there's power in numbers, and definitely Raynah has been, my better half throughout this journey and process. And so, I think it's very important for people to see us united and to see that two Black girls can do it. And so we're thankful that we have a team of people to elevate us to be able to do these things and to at least charge these initiatives. And yeah, we couldn't have done it without the community and village that we have, both our Esri family and those externally. So just thank you guys for this opportunity again.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney.
Well, I would now like to thank you both for being here on the podcast, and thank you for all this important and meaningful GIS work you're developing and coordinating. I'm looking forward to seeing the launch of People for the People and to your book coming out next year. I have a niece. I'm definitely going to share that with her. It's really just exciting to see GIS being utilized to inform, empower, and connect people on important social justice issues. So I really appreciate you both taking your time to share your work with our audience.